If you're sick of always having to chase and put out the fires in your business, it's time to become a fire prevention officer instead. What we're going to talk about today is not for nothing something that Mindvalley CEO Vishen Lakhiani calls "this is integral to our operation." It changed my life a couple of years ago when I was running a theater business, and it was all chaotic because we were students and everyone else was a student, and there was so much going on because you're organizing events, you're creating plays, you're all that kind of stuff. And so I really took the effort there after reading this book to change the way we operated, and that made it so much smoother, so much nicer. We made more money, and so all that stuff is something that I want to talk about today. So we're going to talk about a book called Work the System by Sam Carpenter, and I want to talk to you about 5 principles I learned from that book. And also we're going to connect it with a category of tool called Work OS tools. Those are tools that are really, I feel like, necessary these days to have a well-functioning business if it's kind of a small business. These are tools that allow you to adapt the way the tool works. You can kind of build your own system and your own network of everything that's going on in the business, in the company, and it's all in one place. It's all easily accessible, and it makes things so much easier to run. These things are super intelligent. It's easy to build automations around them, and I love them. So let's get started with our first principle. That is systems mindset. This is really the big mindset shift, because we tend to look at our business and something is happening. Let's say you held a sales call, but then you didn't send a follow-up email even though it was a really hot lead, and you kind of missed the opportunity. That's a mistake that was made, and so you can look at the mistake and put out the fire and send the email, but then maybe it's too late. And what actually happened, if you look into this deeply, is it's not a mistake in this one thing, it's a mistake in the system. Because whether you're conscious of it or not, you are following a kind of 1, 2, 3, 4 step-by-step system. Most of the time, this is kind of what we call tribal documentation. It's kind of in your head somewhere, and you're kind of following it, you're kind of doing it, but you're not really aware of what's actually going on. And so this makes it that you cannot really look at what's happening, and you don't see where the gaps are and where the holes are. So if you change your mindset from looking into everything that's happening into this is happening because it's following a step-by-step system, and if there's a mistake, I should make a change to the system. That's it. It's just the simple mechanics of doing business. If you can start looking at it that way, that's just going to change the way all of this works. The way we're going to start implementing this is by documenting our processes. So I want to introduce this concept of you called SOP, Standard Operating Procedure. And the idea is that this lays out everything important that needs to happen. For example, how do I send an email newsletter? How do I conduct a sales call? There you have the 1, 2, 3 step-by-step way to do it. And it should be so clear and so simple that anyone can follow it. Not just the person who is always doing it. Anyone can follow it. You might think, well, that's a checklist. It's so boring. The checklists can truly make a big difference. If you read the checklist manifesto by Atul Awandi, you see that
the World Health Organization came to my team asking if we could help with a project to reduce deaths in surgery. And so we looked at what other high-risk industries do. We looked at skyscraper construction. We looked at the aviation world. And we found that they have technology, they have training, and then they have one other thing. They have checklists. So we did this. We created a 19-item, 2-minute checklist for surgical teams. We implemented this checklist in 8 hospitals around the world, deliberately in places from rural Tanzania to the University of Washington in Seattle. We found that after they adopted it, the complication rates fell 35%. It fell in every hospital it went into. The death rates fell 47%. This was bigger than a drug.
Having the list, making sure that you really read it, that makes a huge difference. Because there's 2 reasons. One of them, it frees your mind. because you don't have to think about what do I need to do next anymore. And second, it allows you to improve the system because the time and the mind space is made available to you. You can actually look at the system and you can improve it and make it better. So now when actually something goes wrong, you can change it immediately so that it never happens again. Now, in my opinion, writing down your operating procedures is one of the core functionalities of a workOS. And the reason why we want this to be in a workOS is because you can then connect the operating procedures with the project management and the tasks that you already have, and maybe with other documentation that you have around the business. So if we have a tool like Notion, it's very good, very well built for that because it's so centered around documents and it's very easy to create a document. I made a quick little example here in Notion where I created a new table, a database for my SOPs. So for example, I have this one, sales call. If I open this, it has all these steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's very easy for someone to go and look through it. There's also this nice gallery view, which looks a bit nicer, but you can kind of look at it and click on these things and open them. Now what you see here, this thing, SOP runs, this really ties into our third principle called real-time monitoring. The thing is, you don't want to just have the procedures and the processes written down. You also want to know, are they working? Is everything all right? Are things going well? And so a key part of that is, of course, your general KPIs and your health metrics of the company, like how much revenue are we making, how much things are on the fire, something like that. But then also you want to know how are the things running. And this is why I created a table here. So this is a second database in my Notion called SOP runs. And what I do here is every time I'm using the operating procedure, I click new here and I do a new run. And this way we know, so it automatically saved here who created it and when is it created. And you automatically can track how much this operating procedure has been run. By the way, I want to know, do you already use a systems-based approach in your business? How do you store your processes and your procedures, and how do you make sure that they're really good and they stay really good over time? Let me know in the comments below. Now the reason this is interesting is because I also have a field here for rating. So let's say I really loved it this time. I can track how much minutes I spent here. So later on we can kind of graph it out or make a summary. And then this one is an issue. So this is a third database with issues. So I got this idea of issues from the entrepreneurial operating system, which is another set of processes and practices. They have this thing called the level 10 meeting. And the level 10 meeting is a meeting with the leadership that you hold every Monday. And the biggest part of that meeting is actually running through the most important issues and problems in the company. So by having this right where you need to execute your operating procedure, having the ability to add issues, so like something is wrong with this. For example, in the example here, I added there's no prompt to summarize the meetings because it's talking about, well, you transcribe the meeting and then you summarize it with ChatGPT, but the question is, what prompts are used to summarize it well? So this could be an issue that you just kind of click here and you start making a new one. I just press enter or click it, and then now it created the issue. Okay, I linked the other one. So this is very easy for us to track what's going wrong, when did it go wrong, where did it go wrong, so that when you have your level 10 meeting where you're reviewing everything that's happening in the company, you can actually see the issues that are happening with the operating procedures. Now these issues, things are nice, but they can also be a source of another whole bunch of fires that people are putting on and adding all these problems of all these standard operating procedures. And the next principle leads into that perfectly, which is let your employees update the standard operating procedure. This is really the thing of, if you're using it, you better make it as good as possible. And you do not want any bottleneck for making any kind of change or improvements to the processes, because these are the things that run your business. These are absolutely crucial. If there's anything that can be made better about any of them, they should happen. And the best people who do this are actually the people who are on the floor actually doing it. So if you have a bit of a bigger business, this is being executed by your team, then it's so important to let them just have ownership of this and change it, because so many times it's really the little things that make all the difference. I remember back when I was working in a consultancy company, one of the tasks we had to do was we had to annotate PDFs with little like red boxes with dates on them and like a little title of the actual PDF that we received from the client. And it was so boring. I just wanted to do it as quickly as possible. And my manager said like, oh, Marcel, you can make it a little bit nicer. And I was like, bro, this is so not useful. This is such a waste of my time. And I got so stuck up with it that I decided to write a very small piece of code to actually do those little boxes automatically. And I made it and I spread it throughout the company, and everyone loved it because it saved them time doing very, very stupid and boring things that nobody really wanted to do. And it looked perfect, and it was all like almost everything was filled in automatically. And so this is something that leadership would never notice. They would never know that this was kind of a bottleneck because it was kind of a small thing. But over time it adds up because there's hundreds of people doing this tens of times a day. So it adds up pretty quickly. But unless you're really on the ground, you are doing these things, unless you're there, you're not going to see what's going on. You're not going to know exactly how to update and improve these operating procedures. So let everyone in the business make the changes they need to have. And then to wrap this all up, of course, we don't only think about systems. We let the employees change them, we use the systems, but we also make sure that we change them continuously. Like I said in the beginning of this video, if there is a mistake, it's a mistake in the system. But because we have these operating procedures written down now, we can actually see where the mistake is, and we can update the system so that the next time the error doesn't happen again. So I hope you see that this is really the way you can destroy chaos and overwhelm. This will turn you from the one who's putting out the fires to the one who's actually preventing the fires. To wrap up this video, I want to know two things from you. One, what's one big takeaway you took from this video? And second, what's one big question or doubt you have? Please leave them in the comments below and I will answer you. There's more from me on how to use AI in your business and make it more calm, make it more focused, make it run better, because this is just a very small part of this iceberg of AI and using high-tech tools to organize and optimize your business. So check it out, and I'll see you in another video.